9 days after the Ascension, the day of Pentecost, the 12 apostles are praying together with Mary, the mother of Jesus. Suddenly, the Holy Spirit descends upon them, and Peter preaches to the people of Jerusalem. 3,000 people are converted. The church is born. In Acts 11, persecuted disciples in Jerusalem flee as far as Phoenicia, Cyprus and Antioch, where they spread the gospel. Antioch is the third largest city in the Roman Empire after Rome and Alexandria. In Acts 13 and 14, Paul and Barnabas spread the gospel in Cyprus, Pamphylia, and southern Galatia. Following the Council of Jerusalem in Acts 15, Paul sets out on his second missionary journey from Antioch, preaching the gospel in his native Cilicia before moving on to Macedonia and Greece. On his return home, he visits Ephesus, the largest city in the Roman province of Asia in modern-day Turkey, and the fourth largest city in the Roman Empire. In Acts 18-21, Paul sets out from Antioch to visit the churches he had established across Galatia, Asia, Macedonia and Greece, before returning to Jerusalem. In Acts 27, Paul is taken under guard by Roman soldiers from Judea to Rome. After leaving Crete, the ship is lost to a storm, but miraculously lands at Malta in Acts 28, from where Paul makes his final journey to Rome. The narrative history of the Bible ends in Acts 28 with Paul teaching the faith in Rome. Tradition tells us of the journeys of the other apostles. St. James, the older brother of John the Evangelist, preaches the gospel in Spain. He returns to Jerusalem where, in Acts 12, he is run through with a sword by Herod Agrippa. Philip spreads the gospel in Asia, modern-day Turkey, where he is crucified upside down. Bartholomew travels to India. After sharing the gospel there, he travels to the kingdom of Armenia, the location of Mount Ararat, where he is skinned alive and beheaded. Thomas, who doubted the resurrection of Jesus, preaches in the kingdoms of Osrhoene and Armenia before travelling to India, where he preaches in Punjab and Mylapore. He is stabbed to death by Hindu priests near Madras. Matthew stays in Palestine, where he writes his gospel in Hebrew. He eventually moves to Ethiopia, where he is martyred. Simon and Jude preach in Babylon in the Parthian Empire, where they are said to convert 60,000 believers before returning to Suanea, modern-day Beirut, in Syria, where they are martyred. Matthias, who was chosen to replace the apostle Judas, evangelizes Armenia and the north shore of the Black Sea. He returns to Jerusalem and is stoned to death. St. James the Just stays in Jerusalem and prays in the temple every day. Finally, an angry mob throws him off the top of the temple and stones and clubs him to death. Shortly thereafter, Jerusalem revolts against the Roman Empire. The armies of Vespasian march on Jerusalem and completely destroy it, including the temple, in 70 AD. Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, spreads the gospel as far north as Crimea and present-day Ukraine, before preaching in Byzantium, present-day Constantinople, and finally arriving at the city of Petraea, in the province of Achaia, present-day Greece, where he is crucified on an X-shaped cross, as he deemed himself unworthy to be crucified on the same type of cross as Jesus. Simon Peter leaves Jerusalem following the council in Acts 15 and becomes the first bishop of Antioch. He then preaches in Asia before arriving in Rome. Simon Peter sends his disciple Mark the Evangelist to Alexandria, Egypt, the second largest city in the world. Mark becomes Alexandria's first bishop. Emperor Nero blames Christians for the Great Fire of Rome in the year 64 and slaughters the Christians in Rome. The apostles Peter and Paul are martyred. Peter is crucified upside down on Vatican Hill because he deems himself unworthy to be crucified in the same manner as Jesus. St. John the Evangelist is thrown into a cauldron of boiling oil in Rome, but is unharmed. He is then banished to the island of Patmos, where he receives the vision of Revelation. After he is released from exile, St. John resides in Ephesus. His last words are said to be, "Little children, love one another."